All right, so stretching defined. Stretching is a form of physical exercise in which a specific muscle or tendon, muscle group, is deliberately flexed or stretched in order to improve the muscle's felt elasticity and achieve comfortable muscle tone. The result is a feeling of increased muscle control, flexibility, and range of motion. Stretching is also used therapeutically to alleviate cramps. That is the out-of-the-book definition. So it at least gives you some base mark for what this is going to be. So what does that mean in a practical sense, right? That's the by-the-book definition. What does that mean in a practical sense? So there are 4 basic types of stretching, okay? Let's talk about those. So static stretching, okay? This is probably the most common. This is the one that you guys probably think of when you hear someone say, I'm doing some stretching, okay? You think of a static hold, where someone's stretching their calf or stretching their arm or shoulder or something along those lines. So I've got the by-the-book definition. Static stretching is used to stretch muscles while the body is at rest. The end goal is to lengthen a muscle to an elongated position to the point of discomfort and hold that position for 30 seconds. 30 seconds is the minimum duration to get the benefits of stretching. However, no significant difference has been found in resulting range of motion between performing a static stretch for 30 seconds as well as 60 seconds. Now, what does that mean? So a static stretch, as you can see here, I'm going to throw a little video up on the screen. A static stretch is essentially when you're taking a muscle to a range of motion where it's fully lengthened out and you're holding that position. So all you're literally doing is just trying to lengthen the muscle, you're performing a static hold, and you're sitting there for about 30 seconds. Now, the research has shown that 30 seconds is essentially the optimal amount of time because doing more than that doesn't necessarily give you much benefit, okay? So that's the reason why we typically recommend to perform about 30 seconds of stretching. Now we're going to come on back to me presenting here, and I want to show you one more thing. So that's static stretch. Next up is a dynamic stretch. So a dynamic stretch is performed using movement. Instead of using a static hold type of stretch, dynamic stretching is used to improve mobility and prepare for a specific activity. Another key benefit is improved motor control and muscle activation when it's done properly. So a dynamic stretch, and I'm going to throw an example of that up on the screen. A dynamic stretch is essentially where you're performing a stretch, but you're also doing a movement, okay? So as you can see in the picture, what you do is you take the muscle into a stretch, and then you're performing some kind of movement. Whether that's a movement that's going to prepare you specifically for a warm-up or for sport, or just a generalized full body movement that's going to prepare you for something like running, working out, even to prepare you for stretching. It's a great way to warm up pre-stretching. So I'll get into that in a little bit. The next type back here is that we have PNF stretching. Now, hang with me for a second because this is going to be a little bit more complicated than the other ones, okay? It's going to sound like it's a lot of big words and it's very fancy, but it's really not that hard to understand. So, PNF stands for proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretching. What the heck does that mean? So proprioceptive, think of proprioception as essentially a spatial awareness. So your sense of awareness in space, okay? Body awareness, body control, sort of synonyms for that idea. Neuromuscular, all that means is the nerve controlling the muscle, okay? So the connection from the brain to the muscle, and facilitation just means essentially to make something easier, okay? So what you've got is spatial awareness, motor control from the nerve, as well as making it easier, okay? So the idea is with proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, PNF, I'm going to call it from here, is that you want to essentially improve the spatial awareness as well as improve the overall motor control, which is the neuromuscular facilitation. So I'm not going to do an in-depth review of that because that's a very high-level concept, and there's a lot of things that you need to do there in that regard, but just know that it's most useful for the most useful things for specific PNF patterns are going to be some sort of form of contract relax, which is where you're doing an isometric, which is a hold contraction, to increase muscle length, or reciprocal inhibition, which is where you're basically firing one muscle group to shut down another. So to make that simple, if I was going to flex my quad, right, I'm going to have to relax my hamstring. If I get a maximum contraction of my quad or my thigh muscle, I'm gonna have a maximum relaxation of my hamstring. Because if you think about it, so if you look at the arm, right, just gonna show off the guns there, but if you maximally fire your biceps, your triceps has to shut down. If it didn't, what'll end up happening is your arm isn't gonna bend, it's gonna fight itself. So in this position, the biceps and triceps are kind of fighting, they're holding an isometric position, right? If I let that go and go all the way to that full end range, that is reciprocal inhibition. So I'm kicking in the biceps as much as I can, this shuts down the triceps, okay?